Hey folks, Tommy the Butcher here with a new video for you. Today, it's all about comfort food. You know, nothing screams comfort more to me on a cold winter day than pot roast and mashed potatoes. So we're gonna do a pot roast for you coming up. But real quick, before we get started, thumbs up if you like this video. Be sure to smash that like button. Please subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss any notifications. Stay tuned, we're cooking together. All right, folks, we're back. So we're gonna be started here in a soon, but first of all, I wanna explain to you what I'm using. We're using a boneless beef chuck roast. I got a 5.5 pound chuck roast here. This is gonna give you a roast that will fall apart. It'll be fork tender. You will not need a knife to cut it whatsoever. It's for the most part what people are looking for when you're looking for a pot roast. Now there are many other cuts of meat that you can use, such as any of the round roast, bottom round, eye round, even chuck shoulder roast. All of them will get tender using this process, but it's only that boneless chuck that'll give you that fall apart, fork tender result that generally is what everybody's looking for in a pot roast. We're using a Dutch oven. Now this is a cast iron, enamel covered, 7.5 quart Dutch oven. I highly recommend making an investment in this. I think it should be a staple in every kitchen. This happens to be a Le Creuset, the grand dame of all Dutch ovens. There are others on the market, such as Lodge, that you won't have to spend an arm and a leg, and also will be equally as good. We'll put a link in the description box. What we're gonna do to get started, we're gonna salt and pepper it's a 5.5 pound chuck roast. Now you wanna salt it extremely well. Don't be shy, because this is a huge chunk of meat. You literally cannot over salt this, but it's very critical. All right, then we're gonna add our pepper. Okay, we have our pot roast, our chuck roast seasoned. Now, before you start this process, make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees. We're gonna begin the building process for this. It's gonna roughly take about a half an hour. Now, we've gone ahead and prepared what's called our mise en place. And what mise en place is the French term of putting things in place. By doing this, because you're gonna go through a step-by-step process, it's gonna eliminate any stress. All your ingredients will be ready, and you'll be ready to go on the fly as you're building, because little by little, every one of these ingredients is gonna be added to the pot after we do our initial browning. Very critical that we brown the meat first before building the rest of the pot with all our aromatics. Now, one thing I wanna stress, and a lot of people do this, I see people do it when you're braising anything or browning any meat. There's no need to use flour. Flour is primarily used as a thickening agent to make your juice or your pot gravy a little thicker to the end. But you can do that at the end very easily. What the flour will do at the beginning, it will impede the browning formation, the caramelization of the meat. It also can build up in the bottom of your pot with residual flour. It's only gonna burn. So highly recommend just brown off your meat without using flour. All right, folks, we're ready to go. Our pot is hot. We're gonna add a little bit of olive oil. You don't need a lot. And we're gonna put a boneless beef chuck and boneless pot roast in. We're gonna brown it on all sides. Now let this sit there for a while, give it some time. You don't want to skimp on this browning process, because once again, we're building layers of flavor, and this is where it all begins. This is the foundation. While this is browning, I just want to go ahead and explain what the ingredients we're going to be adding to this. We have 2 cups of chopped onion, 2 cups chopped carrot. Also I have 4 large cloves of garlic, all chopped up. 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme. 4 to 5 dry bay leaves, salt and pepper to taste, and we're gonna be using tomato paste. Now, we're gonna be adding about 2 to 3 tablespoons of tomato paste once we get all our aromatic vegetables going. That's gonna add another dimension of flavor with the tomato. Once all that's together, we're gonna deglaze with some red wine. We're gonna add some beef broth, beef stock, and then we're gonna reintroduce the piece of meat, the pot roast, back into the pot with all those ingredients. and then it'll be ready for the oven. We're gonna do a 3-hour braise at 325 degrees, at which point it'll basically be ready to go. Just let it rest for about a half an hour, even up to an hour. It can sit in the pot with its juices for quite a while. So this is browning off. This will take a few minutes, of course. All right, beef chuck roast is all browned off. I'm gonna remove it from the pot if I can get it out of here. Yeah. Done. That took about 15 minutes. Now we're gonna leave all the fat that's in there. We're gonna add a little bit. We're gonna lower the heat just a little bit because we had that up on high heat to get that browning going. And the first thing in the pot are the 2 cups of onions. Let those go for a couple of minutes till they get soft. We're gonna season each step of the way. We're gonna add our 2 cups of carrots at this point. Once again, season every step. All right, so our vegetables are getting very soft and translucent. We don't really need to get a lot of color on this. We're basically looking for maybe 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes with the onions, and then another 2 to 3 minutes with the carrot. And then we're ready for the garlic. Garlic goes in at the end. You don't want to have that garlic in the pot for a very long time, because garlic can burn pretty quickly, and it'll only give you like a very bitter flavor. So right at the end, toss it in. Give it about 30 seconds. Once you begin to smell the fragrance, that's when we're going to start to introduce some of our liquids. But before we do the liquids, we want to add 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh thyme. You want to add about 4 or 5 dry bay leaves. Toss this around a little bit, get it all incorporated. And you can start to smell the aromas now. All right, the next ingredient we're gonna add, and this is a critical one, we're gonna add some tomato paste. We're gonna do about 2 to 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. So this tomato paste, you wanna cook it in. Lower the heat a little bit, because you don't want this to burn. There's a little sugar in the tomato paste. But you wanna stir it in, work it in well, and it will begin to, you'll see, you want like a mahogany color. It will not be developed until you begin to see that color. So stir it well and really get it blended in quite well. You'll begin to see everything turn that mahogany color. It'll go from red to like a more brown red. Once again, we're just building layers of flavor. This whole process is, that's the whole reason for it. Rather than just throwing everything into a pot, putting the lid on and letting it do its thing for a few hours, we're building layers of flavor here. All right, you'll know when this step is pretty much done with the tomato paste. It starts to form a lot of residue on the bottom of the pot as it's starting to caramelize. Now is when we need to add the liquid. So we're gonna deglaze. Gonna raise the heat one more time because we're gonna do a deglazing process. We're gonna do about half a bottle of red wine. Any red wine will do, anything you're willing to drink, you're willing to cook with. Please don't use cooking wine. All it is loaded with salt. Nobody's gonna drink cooking wine, so why would you cook with drinking wine? Just get your salt. In this instance, we got a nice Chianti Classico. Couldn't think of a better one. Just pour about a half a bottle in. And start to scrape up the bottom of the pot. We're gonna reduce this down to about half, and you'll know as the mixture will begin to thicken a little bit. You need to cook off some of the alcohol in here and develop the flavor. All right, I'm gonna give this another minute or two till it reduces, and then we're gonna add the beef broth. Now, for a roast this size, we're looking at, this is a 32-ounce carton of store-bought beef broth. I'm using a low sodium one. You can even use a low salt one. Please don't get the regular broth or stock. It's loaded with salt. You don't need all that extra sodium in it. We're gonna control all the salty flavors with our own seasoning, so you just don't need highly salted beef broth. All right, we're getting there with the reduction. It's starting to thicken up. Now you can see this is reduced quite a bit, and it appears to be about half the volume. So now I'm gonna add the beef broth. I'm gonna put the whole carton in, 32 ounces. And we're just gonna allow this to return to a simmer before we put our beef chuck roast back in. Now what's important with any braise is we don't want the meat covered with liquid. We want maybe 3/4 of it. We want some of it rising up above the liquid. That will be a true braising method. Otherwise it'll just be submerged, it'll be doing a boiling, that type of thing. It's also interesting to note that braising is actually a cousin to barbecue, in that we're taking cheap cuts of meat or very inexpensive, tough cuts of meat, and in the long, slow cooking process, here we're using a liquid to break down all that collagen and connective tissue, just to give you that very gelatinous, fall apart type of end product like barbecue does. So there's a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels between braising and barbecue. That's why we love doing this stuff here at Wise Guys Barbecue. I'm gonna let this liquid come to a boil, and at that point we're gonna put our meat back into the pot. I'm gonna put the lid on it, and then in the oven it goes for 3 hours. Liquid is simmering right now. I'm gonna take the roast, I'm gonna place it back into the pot. And as you can see, it's maybe a third of it is up above the level of the liquid. That's gonna create our perfect braise in that environment. So on goes the lid. Gonna turn our flame off. All right, folks, it's been 3.5 hours, and we've had our pot roast in the oven at 325. It's time to take it out and see what we have here. All right, here's the moment we've been waiting for. Now, I generally like to serve this with mashed potatoes. I think that's the best thing with it. But if you would like to add potatoes during the cook, you most certainly can do that. I would do that with about an hour left of the cooking process. You don't want to put them in the beginning because you don't want any vegetable to be roasting for 3.5 hours. So the last hour, you could add your potatoes, you could add cut up carrots, whatever vegetables you might like. But once again, I like doing the meat just by itself because my intention is to serve it with mashed potatoes. That's the best. So let's remove this, if I can, without it falling all apart. Do you need a knife for this? Most likely not, because you're gonna very easily, as you see, this is just falling apart. It's almost like pulled pork. It's pulled beef pot roast. All right, that looks like the perfect bite right there. So I'm gonna like do a little dipping into the juice. And there we go. My God. Now this is comfort food. This is my ultimate wintertime comfort food. Pot roast and mashed potatoes. Absolutely delicious. So folks, there you go. That's my comfort food go-to beef chuck pot roast served with mashed potatoes. Who doesn't like that? That's all for now. This is Tommy the Butcher for Wise Guys Barbecue. See you next time and keep smoking.